Yeah. But while we're waiting, I think I'd like to get going. So I'm Shanaz Musa from South South North and the CEO of the Climate and Development Knowledge Network. So we've worked closely. South South North is one of the managing partners of the Resilience Hub, and the Climate and Development Knowledge Network ran the Africa Regional Hub component. So just quickly, I don't want to take up too much time, but the process was that we ran one virtual event and we had a presence of Africa Climate Week. We then harvested all those messages and we now have a set of key points or recommendations that came out of that. And it's not ours, it's the voices that were present during that process, and they will be speaking to us about what came out. During this process, and we're deeply apologetic about this, an omission was the culture and heritage component. And I think it's come across at COP as well that it's a missing and is often seen as people performing. And with that, we'd like to ask Salma to come and talk to us a bit about the culture and heritage component and what the big message is that they'd like to feed into the Africa Resilience Hub. And then after that, we'll move on to the panel. Thank you. Welcome, Salma.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a lovely evening and that you're ready for this amazing session. I just want to say 2 words about the fact that most of the time heritage, culture, and the arts are not taken into account in the value they have in climate actions, but also in the resilience for planning to climate change. And this is not just in the African continent, but worldwide. Heritage managers, artists, the culture is present everywhere. It's present in the way we eat, in the way we grow our food, in the way we interact with our environment, in the way we interact with the people around us. And that accounting for cultural values, for impacts of climate change on values, and not just on assets, is a key element that we perceive us as heritage practitioners and researchers that needs to be present in every discourse. And I believe that the panel today will share with you their experience, but in every word they will share with you there is a component of culture, of art, of heritage that most of the time we don't take into account in the heritage discourse. I believe truly that value-based and locally led impact assessments and also adaptation responses are key to a just and fair, resilient future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salma. And now we're going to try this. It's a virtual, while they're hugging. Mish, we need Amanda. So we're trying to include one of our Africa managers, Amanda, who will moderate the session. Amanda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Welcome, Amanda. So I'm going to hand over to you now to moderate the panel. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for joining and for all your contributions to this Africa Regional Hub. There were 10 key messages that came out of the event that we had a few months ago. And the structure of this event today is that we've grouped these into 3 groups, thematic groups. So the first group is local-led adaptation in cities. The second grouping of key messages is
Yes. Hello, my name's Michelle Dutoy. I'm part of the CDKN team. So I'll take over from Amanda while the connection's bad, and then I'll just hand over again. So we had key messages in locally led adaptation in cities, and then in food and agriculture. and then also in finance, and then, of course, the arts and heritage, which we omitted, but we will include. Sorry about that. So we're going to start off, we've grouped the locally led adaptation. Can we put the PowerPoint presentation up, please? Okay, I'll just talk to it. So we're going to have Zileri Luka, who's going to be talking to Eva Mucheri, who is online with us, and also Dr. Vincent Pajiwa, but I don't think that he's managed to arrive today. And Zileri is going to be the key messages that came out from the locally led adaptation in cities. Was that self-organized informal settlement dwellers possess the knowledge, structures, data and experience to deliver cost-effective, appropriate climate action on the ground. We had another key message that decision-making and finance flows should be directed to the lowest appropriate level. And then we also raised that the capacity of the global climate community needs to be strengthened to meaningfully engage with local actors. And then lastly, that heat is an under-the-radar hazard in African cities, that it's not receiving the focus and funding that it deserves. So I'm going to hand over to Zileri now, and he's going to speak to Ms. Eva Muchiri, who's on the line from the SDI Federation in Kenya. Here we go, Zileri.
Thank you so much. As the moderator has said, my name is Zileri Luka. I'm from Malawi. I work with a local NGO called the Center for Community Organization and Development. At the international level, we are affiliated to Slum or Shack Dwellers International, SDI. So our work evolves around supporting the urban poor in various areas of their interests. And because of climate change issues, we have moved a step further to support building climate resilience of the urban poor. So today I'll be speaking to two people, as the moderator has said. I'll speak to Ms. Eva Muchiri, an SDI member from Kenya. I also speak to Dr. Evans Pagua from the University of Botswana. We'll be speaking on a number of issues. We thank you for joining us. So I would like to start with Eva, who is my colleague. We work in the same area. She's also affiliated. Her organization is also affiliated to SDI. We'll be discussing communities as experts of the work that they do as responders to climate change. So I have a question to her. I hope she's online. Okay. Okay, so Eva, we know that the organized communities are experts when it comes to local adaptation, planning, and building resilience. We want you to help us with examples or an example from your work with the young people in the Federation that demonstrate communities as experts in adaptation planning and building resilience. Thank you. We have 5 minutes for that. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So my name is Eva Muchiri from the Kenyan Federation, which is Muungano wa Wanavijiji. So with the Kenyan Federation, which is Muungano wa Wanavijiji, we have different community organizing tools. We use data collection, we use savings, we use planning and also documentation, KYC-TV, the Know Your City TV team, which is a youth-led program. With this, we have different programs within our federation with all the tools that I have just spoken about. And through one of our programs, which is Voices for Just Climate Action, we were able to do a profiling of 494 groups in 3 counties, which is Nairobi, Kisumu, and Nakuru. And Nairobi, we have 329 youth groups, which are climate action groups. So with these groups, we did an assessment to really validate if they're really doing climate action activities within our informal settlements. And we found out that we have capacity gaps. So what we do as the federation is we support them with trainings in regards to financial literacy, which is bookkeeping and record keeping. We train them on networking and how to fundraise for resources. We have also trained them on governance and leadership, community engagement, and also how to do their business plannings and how to write proposals. So after these trainings, we try and we follow up on how the groups are proceeding, because when most of these groups, what they do is that whatever activities they're doing, whether it's urban agriculture, whether it's art, whether it's waste management, how are they going to sustain themselves as a youth group? How are they going, or by the end of 5 years, where do they want to see themselves as a youth group, and also how do they want to see their community? So we try and tell them to enter into a savings culture, which is also a backbone within the SGI Federation. We really train these youth groups so that they can be farm on their own. So we train them on how they can start their savings, either long-term savings or also short-term savings, which are type of banking. And also we also give them a priority of whether they can start by doing merry-go-round, so that they can start trusting themselves first, so that they can venture into long-term savings. Then after all the trainings, we did a call for application with the support grants, which we found from the WWF. And so we called for application from the online. The groups applied, and we had 1,161 groups applying for the grants, but only 106 groups countrywide qualified for the support. So in Nairobi, we have supported 66 groups. And now in Nakuru County, we have supported 24 groups. In Kisumu County, we have supported 16 groups. And with this support, it was not secured in that it's like a loan from a bank or a grant from an institution that has a lot of rules. It was a free grant in that the only thing they were supposed to give us is only their budget. What do they want to do with the support? So with the support they wanted, we only supported them with a little funds to help them sustain themselves, and also to make the activities more visible in the community. So what we really do as a youth federation is to document each and every process that they are doing. Our platform is in Know Your City TV Kenya. Our videos are there. You can see them online. Also visit our Facebook page, which is Muungano Wanavijiji, and also our Twitter handle at Wanavijiji. We have all these stories of youth groups in our informal settlements trying to change our communities with climate action activities, because what we know is that the informal settlements are really hit when it comes to climate change. Our houses are not in good condition. You find that most of our informal settlements lie either at the riparian areas or by the roadside. So with the riparian areas, with the rivers, you find they are so polluted with garbage. So we try to link up with the groups that are rehabilitating the river, with the waste collectors. We try to bring them together so that they can form a movement and they can have a good linkage, so that they can be able to work with one another. Because we know if we do not solve the waste management in our informal settlement, actually we are not going to achieve anything in rehabilitating our ecosystems. So lastly, what I can say is that community involvement, most of the youth, are key in ensuring that the Voices for Just Climate Action projects reflect local realities and needs in our informal settlements. Thank you. Back to you, Zilire.
Thank you so much, Eva. Thank you for your presentation. I think you have touched on a number of issues and a number of key issues that are being discussed on this platform. Conducting needs assessment, validating the findings, identifying community capacity gaps, fundraising for resources, sustainability of processes, and what have you. A lot of things that we are discussing here. I just wanted you in a minute to share with this group that we have here one key message that would want us to take home.
Well, what I can say is that there is nothing for us without us as people who live in the informal settlement. So you engage us, you involve us, and everything will be visible in the informal settlements. What I want to say, my key message is that the youth are key people when it comes to the Voices for Just Climate Action projects, because they are going to be the elders of tomorrow. So engage the youth from the word go, help them finance their activities, help them grow, and we are going to achieve a very good development informal settlements with a climate-friendly environment in our informal settlements. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you so much. We were supposed to be joined by another presenter, but unfortunately he's not here. He might join us later, so we'll take over the conversation from there. Thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Zilera, and thank you so much, Eva. I'm going to hand back to Amanda. I see you back. So, to talk about the finance key messages and just show 3 or 4 of them before we hand over to Prabhakar Vanam.
Thank you, Michelle. Apologies for that. I was experiencing technical issues a few minutes ago. I can't see the presentation.
I think you might need to share your screen, Amanda, I think. Or is the presentation there? Pardon? Okay. Perhaps you can just start talking through the messages, the finance messages that came out so long. Okay. We'll just have to hustle. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me go through. Amanda, when you come back, is she back? Okay, brilliant. She's gone. Okay, sorry. We'll just have to hustle. Okay, so these were the finance and investment messages. The first one was that African tech startups are increasing the reach and scale of climate resilient services for underserved and climate impacted communities using Africa's growing mobile network and money services. Then that blended finance can enhance the business case for climate resilient investors. And then that Africa is not homogeneous and that a just transition means different things in different places and at different stages. So I'm going to hand over to our colleague, Esperanza Carajo. And Esperanza is from the adaptation, oh gosh, I've gone blank. Ada. Sorry, Esperanza. So if you could just introduce yourself, and then she'll be interviewing on asking some people some questions on the finance messages.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. My name is Esperanza Carajo, and I'm based in Kenya. I work for Adaptation Consortium, and basically our work is supporting the sub-national governments. In Kenya, we call them the counties, to facilitate the flow of climate finance from the government level and blended in a way that the partners, development partners, the private sector, and other actors who are interested in supporting addressing climate crisis in Kenya, they can be able to put their finance into that central kitty, and the government is able to facilitate the flow of that finance to the community level. So today, I will be interviewing a panel of 3 experts who will be sharing their experience in basically 3 things. The first one is accessing. We know there are challenges. There are many ideas and many innovations that are coming up every day. But then there are also barriers to this, to accessing the climate finance. So we will hear from their experiences and unpack how to address the challenges to accessing this finance. And we'll also get to learn about the role of different actors, the donors, the public and the private actors in ensuring accessibility to the finance. And also we get to hear about inclusivity of women and other community that are underserved, especially in response to technology and use of technology in reaching these people. So quickly, I'm gonna invite Miss Nuran El Said, and thank you. Yes, I see you on board. So we realize that there can be multiple challenges to accessing funding for startup businesses, and seeking to enhance climate resilience. What is your experience to this, and by whom do you think these challenges can be addressed?
Thank you, Esperanza. Let me start with this. Hello, everyone. I'm Nuran El Said. I'm the Business Development Director and co-founder of Plug and Grow. Plug and Grow is basically a company that develops soilless production systems. You might be more familiar with hydroponic production systems that are especially tailored for developing markets. We aim to achieve like a balance between economics and the quality of the produce basically produced. We've been working in the AgTech space for about 10 years now. And I can tell you it has not been an easy road until today, because AgTech is, especially in Africa, is one of the sectors that are only recently started getting in the focus of the funding agencies. Opportunities and financing options were quite limited as we started working on this quite advanced technology. So throughout those past 10 years, we've basically secured financing through a number of different tactics and a number of different options that might be a little bit unusual than the normal track. As Esperanza said, there is a lot of challenges in this space, so we had to be a little bit more creative with it. So, of course, the golden rule with startups, you start with family and friends, and that's how we started. And it's always a good point to start there, because you get not only the financial, but also the emotional support of the community around you to build this venture and build this product, if I may say, that you see that has a value and can bring about an addition to your community. So this is step number one. Step number two is actually looking into and becoming part of programs that support you in developing your business, like incubators and accelerators and programs like the ones Eva mentioned. This usually provides you with some financial support, but more importantly, it helps you build the business model and the core of your business on a proper manner so that you can actually become eligible to secure proper financing as you grow. Number three, you need to also work on creating a creative business model for your business that utilizes let's say, the more unusual financial tracks that are available around you. For instance, as we started, and for quite a long time, we were not able to secure any financing from the banking sector. We were new, we were young, we were developing technology, so that was not something that was really in scope. So we started looking into models where interested investors, not in the regular sense of investors, but normal people who have the interest to invest in new ideas that bring about solutions, invest small amounts with us as we grew the business. That worked for us for some time, especially in our context. But also there are a lot of financing entities like VCs and angel investors that you can resort to. And as we're seeing now, the startup ecosystem has become much more structured and aware. So accessing financing from those entities has become something that is much more attainable. Whereas maybe 5 years ago, it was a little bit challenging, especially in the African context. But also, luckily, we have other options that can support this, and this, such as grants. There are always a lot of grants that are available to work on research and development of products. Also, that encourage you to work with multiple international partners, and this is usually a very important advantage that you can gain from these grants, which is the exposure to other experiences from different contexts and in collaboration with other entities. There are also grants to build projects on specific topics, which is something that is actually, you can find specified grants, for instance, for Africa or for specific themes like energy or agriculture and so on. These are always great opportunities to work on big projects that as a small startups, it could probably be very challenging to handle altogether as a whole project on your own, but very possible with the support of other partners, international partners that can improve your know-how and knowledge. But finally, there's also a new, let's say, a new source that we can now start looking into, which are the funds availed by the development banks, like the EBRD or the African Development Bank, that are now being kind of translated into the commercial banks. For instance, here in Egypt, for us, we have a number of funds that can now be utilized to work specifically in the domain of agri-tech towards sustainability, like a fund available by the EBRD, but also there are local funds that are available. For instance, we have another fund that is provided by the CBE, specifically for SMEs. And I'm sure you will always find similar funds and initiatives that are accessible in your country, but this facilitates a lot of the growth because most of them usually have lower interest rates than regular bank interest rates, and their requirements and their needs are much more tailored to the nature of startups and new ventures, that because they really are now focused on giving this platform and providing the startups to actually participate in this field.
Thank you so much, Ms. Noran. I see there's so much to hear and learn from you. I picked two things, or rather three strategies. One of the ways to address the challenges in reaching the funders is that we need to find a way to strategize and create business models that are interesting to the funders and interesting to the investors, and also engage financing entities and explore the grants and the funds that are locally available and also from the multilateral banks. Moving on to Mr. Vanam, and just to shed more lights, we have got to learn who are the people that are availing the finance. Maybe you can shed some more light on how the donor funders can work and engage in partnership with private and public funders, just to find a way to increase access to finance for local resilience. Maybe as you introduce yourself, and maybe you can also shed more light on what you see as each of those actors, what are their roles?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. Let me start by congratulating Ada Consortia for winning the LLA awards from GCA. So that's a fantastic thing. Well done, and that's the groundwork that Ada Consortia has been doing, which has led to that award. Thank you so much. Earlier this year, KCIC Consulting, in partnership with GIZ, had the opportunity to moderate a session on private sector solutions for climate adaptation and resilience. There were a lot of points. I think Michelle had mentioned the finance points. And this event was well attended with over 200 people, practitioners who gave a lot of inputs. I think the full report would be available on South-South-North website, I guess. But here I wanted to make three specific points. The first point is about data. And data, I have two quadrants. One is the availability of data. There is so much of data that is available, we'll get lost into the ocean of this data. Now the point is, if you want to implement the resilient projects, especially at the ground level, at the local level, how is this data how can people use this data in a user-friendly manner, in a very simple manner, in a manner that I can actually take the data and implement to my business solution and implement in designing a program which is very much in the context of the local adaptation kind of challenges. So that is one challenge. Second challenge is lack of data. While we have data on one side, there is a lot of areas where there isn't enough data. So what are the donors going to do about it? How are the universities going to collaborate about it? How they are going to form a partnership to ensure that this data is available. The third point about the data is there is a big dichotomy of, especially in the context of access to finance, there's a big dichotomy of funders looking for bankable projects and projects looking for appropriate funding, and both are unable to match. Looks like both the tracks are traveling in two different directions. So how do we meet? How these tracks can meet? How the bridge can be formed between these two gaps that we have would be one of the issues that donors and private sector and various other actors who are working in this ecosystem needs to work on. The second thing is the finance itself. Now, I'm not going to get into the data in terms of what kind of finance is needed, especially for Africa in the resilience space. There are so many conferences that are happening on the side events that are happening who are talking about trillions of dollars that are needed to fill the gap, especially in Africa, in terms of adaptation and resilience. I'll not go into that. I'll specifically focus on the private sector. There is a lot of hue and cry about the private sector focus or the private sector involvement in the space is so little. I think 3% is what they are contributing to the adaptation space from the private sector. So how do we enhance it? There is a need because the public sector cannot fund it, the donors cannot fund it, so the private sector needs to come in. But why are they not able to come? Because they are able to do bit of projects in the mitigation space. Adaptation space is about identifying the bankable projects. It's about ensuring there is a sustainable business model for the private sector to ensure that they can put in their money and they can also leverage additional financing through that. They need certain amount of guarantees. They need certain amounts of seed capital. They need certain amount of ring fencing so that they are able to put in their money with utmost confidence so that they can leverage private more financing. That's the point number 2. Point number 3 is about lack of technical assistance. I think this is where donors can actually play a very important role in ensuring there is technical assistance available for projects, ensuring that the projects becomes bankable. And how do we do that? By providing transaction advisory support, by providing support to ensure that the projects are moving from ground zero to a floor where they are becoming more bankable to attract private capital as well as various other capital. So these are the three key points that I wanted to make sure that when we are designing a program, when we are implementing a program, the culmination of all these 3 points needs to take into consideration while ensuring the projects are implemented on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vanam. Yes, I picked one key issue. The others are really well explained. Dichotomy. Yes, there's always that issue where funders are looking for people to invest in and projects, and also those who have initiatives, innovations, and new ideas, they're looking for funders. I think we'll come back to you to get to hear your key takeaway and message home on how we can bridge that. But meanwhile, we'd like to hear from Miss Judith Mulwa, and she brings in experience on technology, inclusivity, and availing access to finance. Ms. Judith, how can we leverage mobile and internet technology to support access to finance for the African entrepreneurs, but still making sure that we can ensure that women and underserved communities are not excluded? And just as you wrap it up, what do you think we should be doing to increase women's role in tech startups?
Thank you, Esperanza. I'm going to build on what Vanam has just said in terms of sustainable business model. We're seeing that there's a shift of financing, or as far as climate financing, from grants to loans. And I think this is it's a very important shift, because then grants help you to get from the ground, but loans are very important in terms of the growth of your startup or the growth of your business. So ideally, the impactful of the transformational change that is needed as far as climate change is concerned. And so this is where, when you're looking at the gender population, where the mobile and digital technology will be quite essential. The data, in terms of data collection, when you're talking about data, you cannot delink data and technology. And this is because also when you're talking about financing, we are going to that space where precision data is very important. Because then if you're going to build a business model, you need that precise data. But also then, if you're looking at the gender component, I love the fact that you started with a social and cultural. That is one thing that you cannot delink as far as women and gender is concerned. And so you see the mobile technology, as far as loans is concerned, is coming up with the issue of credit rating. Before, it would be very difficult for a woman, let's say in the Africa region, and generally the low middle income countries, to borrow loans. Why? Because we need collateral, and collateral is what? Land. But when you're looking at mobile money, which is coming up very strongly in Africa, then you can build your credit rating, and your credit rating becomes the collateral. So this is quite important, because then they can be able to access, the farm inputs or whatever it is that they need as far as climate financing is concerned. This, for me, is a game changer. But then when you're looking at the marketplace, a lot of the smallholder farmers, let's say in agriculture, they are very, they need a marketplace. Before, it is the normal market. The issue of the middleman is a very pertinent issue, because you don't get the value for your money. But then when you have technology, you have virtual marketplaces, and you see that a lot of women, in instance, are actually getting their value for money. Of course, there needs to be checks and balances put in place. The issue of, do they know, are the operations quite user friendly and things like that? Of course, those are, put aside those, but it is also a game changer when you're looking at the issue of value for money and the marketplaces. Now, what do we need to do? First of all, when you're looking at the narrative that is a lot in climate change is, women as victims of climate change. We need to change that to look at it from they are agents of climate change. You're seeing a lot of women entrepreneurs coming up, or techpreneurs coming up with solutions that are can mitigate or adapt to climate change. So that is one, even when you're calling for applications, and the donors need to look at it from that perspective. But then, of course, when you're looking from an ESG perspective, an environmental, social, and governance perspective, when you're saying that we want to pull money from the private sector, we are also asking, women leadership in these positions. Because then with women leadership, then you see that the investment then trickles down from that perspective. If you have a business leader who is a woman, he or she will ensure that the same is replicated even in terms of investment. So it is also in terms of institutional policies on ESG. And investment in terms of the gender lens, there's a lot of money out there in terms of climate financing, but it's very difficult to see an investment, framework that has included a gender lens. I think that would be quite important to see, even in terms of the financing modalities that are there, both the public but also the private sector. And finally, in terms of building the capacity, which is what Vanam had talked a little bit about, in terms of leadership forums, especially for women that are entrepreneurs, you need those. In terms of mentorship programs, that's very important. But even then, the technical assistance, in terms of some of the technical programs that need to come up, and they need to be enrolled so that they have the particular skill that is needed. That is quite important. And lastly, we're talking about exchange programs. Innovations cut across different regions from both the South and the North. You have the South-South Cooperation Framework. How do we harness those? We have the South-North or the North-South. That also is quite important. So such exchange programs will be quite instrumental in terms of the technical expertise and technical assistance and building capacity in women in technology.
Thank you so much. Let's give Judith a round of applause. Yeah, I picked one thing, one key issue there. technical assistance that was also mentioned by Mr. Venam, and also learning forums, leadership forums, exchange programs is something that we may want to explore in ensuring that we can increase the capacity and empower and bring women on board, ensuring inclusivity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Esperanza, and all our panelists who spoke. And thank you also for keeping to time for us so we all have a chance. Thank you very much. Amanda, I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm hoping, we're praying that the internet stays on so that you can talk about the agriculture and food key messages. I can move the screen for Amanda if you'd like, the slides. Okay, fire away, Amanda.
Thanks, Mish. I really apologize to all participants. I'm having serious technical challenges this morning. So I'm going to try and follow with you, Mish. But I can't, the screen is very small. The words are very small on my end because I'm joining on my phone this morning and not on my laptop.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Let me see if I put my video off.
Okay. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. I'm really sorry that Amanda isn't able to present here, but I'll just carry on. So in the food and agriculture, we really found from the sessions that there's no one solution when creating a more climate resilient, agricultural system. And especially, and this also links with what was just said, that learning and co-creation needs to be emphasized at multiple points across levels and the value chain. Then that to scale climate-smart agriculture, smallholder farmers need access to a whole bundle of services across value chains, and that these need to be delivered in varied channels and by multiple actors. And then lastly, but definitely not least, the value of healthy soils in increasing agricultural yields, and that also having the benefit of sequestering greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm going to hand over. You can take we can see the speakers again. You can take off the screen. I'm going to hand over to Sitimbile Mwamakamba, Sitimbile, who's the Director of Policy and Research Analysis at FAN ARPAN. Here you go, Sitimbile. Sorry, my tongue.
It's okay, Michelle. I find it's easy if you just say it, word for word the way it's written. Mwamakamba. I inherited it as well, so I had to learn it over time. Anyway, thank you so much, and a good morning to everybody joining. I am from the Food Agriculture Policy Analysis Network, FANAPAN. We work across 17 African countries, and ours really is to push for evidence-based policies within the food and agriculture space. And I am excited today to be part of this Resilience Hub. I think we started the journey a couple of months ago, and it's good to see it all coming to a head here and meeting the people that we were, conversing virtually. So for us, food is life. I think we have to start there. We can talk about solar, we can talk about all other things, but with no food, we are not alive. So for us, food is life. And I am joined today by two panelists that are going to share with us some of what came out from the discussion and a bit of their experiences from where they are working. Here in the room, we are joined by Ms. Lauren Junguna, who is the General Manager for Starlight Farmers Cooperative Society in Kenya. Thank you for joining us, Lauren. And then online, we are joined by Mr. Christian Tiha, who is the Researcher and Executive Director of the Sustainable Environment, Ecotourism, and Agricultural Development Organization, CEDAW, and I think he's joining us from Cameroon. Thank you so much for being with us. So I'm just going to jump straight into it and start with Lauren here in the room. You know, yesterday it was Gender Day, right? And we saw some high-level panels on gender, and we had a lot of powerful women speaking about what needs to happen as far as women are concerned within the broader climate change discussions. But I want to bring it to a more practical level, right? To take it really to the ground, to where everything happens. You work with farmers, and I just want to understand if there are any examples of women-friendly agricultural technologies that you have used, that your women farmers that you work with have used, and how could we maybe increase inclusivity of climate resilient agriculture? Lauren.
Thank you for that question. My name is Lauren from Kenya, Nakuru. I work with a cooperative called Starlight Farmers Cooperative Society, and we are implementing a climate smart project called Climate Resilient Agribusiness for Tomorrow project under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands. And our main goal in this project has been to increase farmers' productivity in the potato value chain. We are basically providing seeds to the farmers and also supporting them to adapt to climate-smart agriculture technologies. We are working with 2,164 farmers, and out of that number, 65% of them are women. And one of the main technology we have adapted is mechanization in the potato value chain. What we did, we bought implements that promote the climate change and resilience. And we bought this and we invested with the gender lens. We bought a chisel plow for land preparation. Women in Kenya specifically, I feel like they don't have a big hand in mechanization. And when it would come to the season of farming, men, because they are the one who own the machinery, then women sometimes would not have first-hand access to the land preparation machinery, and that would delay them in land preparation and in farming in general. So now, with the cooperative owning the machinery, they are able to access the machinery on a timely manner. We also have a credit facility. They don't need to have money to access this machinery. They can get them on credit, so they don't have a reason for not to farm on time. We also have a potato planter, and this potato planter does 3 jobs in one. It does dispensing of the seeds, fertilizer, and molding of the farm. We have an harvester, and overall, these machines are enabling women to have access to timely machinery, timely services, and also they save on cost. And this enables them even to be involved in other economic activities and to do their house chores, and also it enables them to have time to take care of their families. We are also providing spraying services through the use of boom sprayers, and we have youth who spray these farms. And we are doing this also to take care of the health of the women, because when they spray, we know women, they are the ones who we have to take care of their reproductive system. So when they inhale a lot of chemicals, then that affects their health. So we have brought on board youth who can support in spraying these farms. So generally, we have ensured we have made agriculture or farming less labor intense for women. We have also ensured that we have made it very affordable, and we have made it, they consume less time in working in their farms. Basically, they are doing a job that they could do in days, in only very few hours. So for us, that has been very key. And also with use of machinery, we are ensuring water conservation, and they are able to get better yield, and this means increased household income, considering that some of these homes are women-led. They are the key providers of their families, so we ensure they have better yield. We have warehouses where we store the potatoes, and this enables them not to struggle with post-harvest losses, and this also enables the cooperative to link them to the market. When it comes to suggestions on how we can increase climate resilience in agriculture, Number one, I would talk of adapting transformative framework when it comes to implementation of initiatives. And I would, for me, I would want to look at this from a very a gender lens, aimed at bridging the gap of gender in agriculture and especially in Africa. And looking at projects that are long-term, because teaching or farmers learning, farmers having exchange programs is one thing, but adapting takes time. So having a longer period to implement such projects to ensure we have a bigger impact on the ground. Secondly, ensuring that I saw one of the key messages is that only 1.7% of the finances are getting to small-scale farmers. I would wish we would have over 50% of this financing getting directly to the small-scale farmer. This way we would have a bigger impact and we would have a bigger influence. You have talked of research, you have talked of research and the data that is existing, and there is a big gap between research and the actual work being done on the ground. So for me, also I would encourage us to link the two and to have gender-based and inclusivity-based indicators, and also follow up on these indicators and monitor them effectively to ensure that we are implementing what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. That was very passionate, and I think it comes from a place of experience. It's something that you cannot rehearse, but it's something that you have lived through. For me, you know, the issues that you mentioned, really, it's about bundled solutions. We have to make sure that we give women not just the tools, but the information, the money, you know, and all the support that they need. And it's also about freeing their time, you know, something that we take for granted, freeing their time to be able to do other things and to be able to actually produce more efficiently. All right, thank you so much. I think I'm going to just quickly change gears now and take everybody with me as I travel to Cameroon to meet with Christian. I think yesterday, one of the statements that stood out for me that I had in attending the sessions was that agriculture transformation is not going to come from ideologies, but it's going to come from our hands in the soil, because that's where it happens. And I want to talk to Christian about the soil, about what's gone wrong with our soils in Africa, but what we can do to restore them. Christian, can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Yes, good, perfect. What are you doing to restore soils, and what tips can you give others to ensure that this happens broadly? I understand that your program is really doing excellent work around soil management, and I wonder if you can share with us this morning what you are doing in that area.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. I am Christian, as you said, and I'm from Cameroon. I am the Executive Director of CIADO and also a member of the African Late Soil Organic Carbon Conference of Parties, which is still under formation. Our works with soils have actually revealed a lot, and what we have been doing is all about researching on measures that can enhance soil health, and also sharing these practices with local farmers, smallholder farmers in local communities. You know, when we talk of soil health, a major component of soil health is the soil organic carbon, which also contributes a lot to other soil health factors, and both physical and chemical. Now, taking from what we have done and drawing from our experiences, many practices, agricultural practices around Africa are actually contributing a lot to soil degradation. So this also is also a hindrance to food production, which is actually what we all are fighting for, to combat food insecurity. Some of the practices, like what we have done, I will take it from the first thing we started with. normally what we do is when we research, we sensitize and build capacity. And so the first research work that we engaged on was to investigate the various soil practices around the Mount Cameroon National Park within local communities around Mount Cameroon National Park, and also to relate how these practices are affecting soil organic carbon. And we realized from this work that a mixed cropping system actually proved to have the most healthy soils when we take of agricultural practices around this area. And a mixed cropping system, when we come to monocropping, we realize that maize monocrop systems were also actually not bad in terms of soil health, and tea and other monocrops. Now, our interest here was actually to see how this affecting soil organic carbon. So the maize cropping system among the monocrops proved to be had the highest soil organic carbon, and the mixed cropping system had a higher soil organic carbon than the maize cropping system, with all of those witnessing some significant differences within them. And when we realized this, our program now was to encourage local farmers to actually engage more in this mixed cropping system. One other thing we also did in this one was to investigate the farming practices within the Bamenda Highlands of Cameroon. And we realized that actually within these farming practices, there were some positive practices that are good to encourage, like crop rotation and mixed cropping. But from all this work, the tillage practices was actually not very encouraging, because farming here is done by complete tillage with formation of ridges. Approximately 98% of the smallholder farmers are involved in these practices, and they also occur trying to burn the residue within the ridges. And all of us, we know that this is very detrimental to soil biodiversity, and at the end, it only leads to soil degradation in terms of fertility. So we also engaged in a conservation tillage practice test. We wanted to see how the impacts of conservation tillage and cover cropping, what the impacts of that on soil organic carbon and maize grain use. So we did a 5-year program. This was actually a pilot program working together with some farming communities, some farming groups, and individual farmers. So we did a 5-year pilot project where we realized that carrying out conservation tillage, where we actually do still along the lines of planting and actually covering them up with mulch. And then we realized that at the end of this, we had an increase in soil organic carbon. Yes.
My apologies. I think we have really run out of time, and there's so much that we could learn from your experiences. But really, for me, from what you are saying is that we need to invest in understanding our soils and in making sure that they have the right ingredients for us to be able to reap a good harvest from the soil. So thank you so much for joining us. And I am sure that this will be shared quite widely. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you very, very much, Sithimbile. Thank you to all our speakers. And Christian, sorry that we had to cut you off now. So we're ready to close. I just want to say it's been a real honor to be part of this, and to thank everybody for your time, for your wisdom, for your insights. What I really heard a lot through this session was a lot about learning, and I think we as a team have learned. In terms of the exclusion, what we didn't include with a heritage, and we're going to include that now into our messages. And It just has been an honor to work with all of you. We can, after the session, I realize that we haven't had any time for questions and answers, and I'm really from the participants, from the audience, so I'm sorry about that. We are all going to move outside over here, so please do have some delicious coffee, ask questions, and we've got more time to talk and to delve into some of the areas. And I just want to now to hand over to Mr. Ibrahim Chan from Benin. He's from the Takianda Ecological Museum. It's the first ecological museum and mobile school of ancestral skills in Benin. And we're really very pleased and honored to have him play for us so we can start mingling and listen to Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you very, very much. And thank you to all of you.
Agbela nyona mu, nuke tutu mawa. Na agbela nyona mu, nuke mawa. Agbela nyona mu, nuke tutu mawa. Na agbela nyona mu. Nyalema, agoke mujoje. Nyalema, atamu l'ecologie. Nyalema. Agoke mujoje, nyalema, atamu fomia o. Huazemijan, heglo. Mvasasilero topa nuke tutu mawa na gbela nyona mu nyalema agoke mujoje ma nyalema atamu l'ecologie nyalema agoke mujoje nyalema atamu fomia o. Oh mon Dieu, tu connais mon cœur, oh Allah, tu connais ma vie. Ouazemijan, heglo, mvasasilero, topa nuke tutu mawa, na gbela nyona mu. Nyalema, agoke mujoje, nyalema, atamu l'ecologie, nyalema. Agoke mujoje, nyalema, atamu fomia o. Ouazemijan, heglo, mvasasilero topa nuke tutu mawa na gbela nyona mu nyalema agoke mujoje nyalema atamu l'ecologie nyalema agoke mujoje nyalema atamu fomia o.